My wife and I were watching a show this past week, and she recognized an actress that she had seen in other movies or shows we've seen before, but she couldn't quite put her finger on which show it was. I don't know if you've ever been there, but that can be a really frustrating moment, can't it? Thankfully, in the age we live in, you can pull up all that information on a phone or a tablet or a laptop, and you can see a nice list of everything that an actress or actor has ever played in. What a great resource. She pulled it up on her phone, she found it, and she was like, oh, okay, I got it. That eases my mind. That moment is indicative, I think, of the society and the time we live in, isn't it? We like to have things at our fingertips. We like to have things in nice, neat little lists, easy to access, so that if we have to find out something, we can just, in a moment, find it. When we read this past Sunday about how God was bringing and fulfilling the promises that he had made so far in our story, we didn't read about a list, did we? You see, we celebrated Christmas. We celebrated the arrival of Jesus. We celebrated the arrival of this promised king. And it's a powerful story, but Luke doesn't give us a list. He doesn't say, oh, look, here's the promised king you've been waiting for. Here's Jesus. Now let me give you a list of every qualification he ticks off all the way down to so you know that he is the one that God is promising. No, what we get is a lot of stories. And these stories just resonate with echoes of Old Testament stories that we've already read before. So what we have here is Luke calling us back to remember the old stories in this story of Jesus and how his story ties all the other stories together. It's beautiful, really, but it's different than how we normally access information, isn't it? Now, we didn't cover this Sunday, so I want to make sure we highlight just a few examples of how Luke does this, of how he pulls Jesus' story into the bigger story and how he links the promises of God all the way to Christ. So, let's think about this that we just read Sunday. We didn't cover this particular part, but before Jesus arrives, before even Mary knows that she's going to have a child, we find that an angel visits another couple named Zechariah and Elizabeth. And he shows up to Zechariah and he says that you're going to have a son. And Zechariah's confused because Zechariah and Elizabeth have had to have children, tried to have children for years, and they couldn't. And Zechariah is thinking, well, there's no way this is going to happen. And this is what he says. He says, tells the angel, he says, how shall I know? How is this possible, in other words? For I'm old and my wife is old. She's advanced in years, it says in Luke 1:18. Now, when we read that story, when we hear those words, when we hear that phrase repeated back from Zechariah, that should clue us in. That's what Luke is doing. He's doing this intentionally. It's not by accident that he's telling this story, and it's not by accident that God orchestrated this to come about in the same way, because it should help bring to mind the story of another elderly couple that God promised a son to. Do you remember who that was? That was Abraham and Sarah, wasn't it? The very first promise of blessing that we get in the biblical narrative of God telling Abraham, saying, I know you're old, I know your wife is old, and you haven't had any children yet, but you're going to. And that one child's going to have children who has children, and the whole world will be blessed because of what I'm about to do in your life. See, Luke is beginning to connect the dots here, isn't he? By telling this story. Okay, here we have this elderly couple who's going to have a child. Where do I remember hearing that? Oh yeah, Abraham and Sarah. God working. Same patterns, same way, different times, but same patterns, same modes, right? He continues that trend with the angel's visit to Mary and Joseph, doesn't he, right? God visiting a lowly, humble family and exalts them to the highest honor. Where have we heard that story before? Right? I think we get an echo of it in King Saul and King David, don't we? We have Saul, the proud king who the people wanted and they gave, but he falls down from glory. He falls off his throne because of his pride, and God raises up a lowly family out of Bethlehem. King David, he's just a lowly shepherd boy who was unremarkable in every way, except for that he fully trusted in God, and God raised him up. God took that humble servant and made him the king of the whole country. So we see here in the angel's visit to Mary and Joseph that same echo Same call of God promising something to the lowly and the humble and raising them up to places of honor. Isn't that awesome how he weaves this together? Luke even includes a song that Mary sang to make sure we don't miss it. I just want to highlight a piece of this song. It's in Luke chapter 1, verse 51 through 53, where she sings this beautiful song, and she says this. She says, he has shown strength, meaning God. God has shown strength with his arm, right? Meaning he's rolling up his sleeves and getting ready to go to work. We heard that before too, haven't we? He's scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. And he has brought down the mighty from their thrones and exalted those of humble estate, right? He has filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he has sent away empty. What's she calling out here? It's the reversal of status, the reversal of influence, the whole reversal of the world's concept of what is needed and what is good and what is valued and what God values and what his kingdom is about. And he makes sure he frames it in this poem that she sings. Luke does a great job of this to remind us this is how God is working. He's raising up the lowly. He's putting down the proud. He's instilling this new kingdom set of ethics and values to live by. You see, these Old Testament echoes that Luke does such an awesome job of pulling in and bringing to our mind through these stories, coupled with the direct connections we read Sunday, right? Remember the angel's words about how the child would be the anointed king? That's a pretty direct connection, isn't it? He would be a child of his father Joseph, who just happened to be a descendant of David. He would also be God himself in flesh by the power of his Spirit. Let's check all the boxes we know of the king to come, doesn't it? The one who would fill all of God's promises. Now, it might not be all in a nice, neat list like we would want it, but it's all there. It took thousands of years of history and many moments where it looked like it would all fall apart. But God was faithful to make good on his word, even if it didn't happen the way anyone thought it would. And he is still good on his word today.